Do I? Anyway, great to see you. Hi, I'm James. I'm from the south side of London, south side congregation of the London Church of Christ, and I really appreciate the invitation up here. This is my family. So, my wife Amanda, who we were married 27 years yesterday.
That's very sweet.
Going out tonight. Got a pub dinner. She didn't want. I said, "Do you want to go out? Last night tonight." She said, "No, I don't want to miss Bible talk. So we're going out now." My son JJ, who lots of you know, under the tender care of Mulligan and others. So he's in the East now. It was fun. We were working on this together. He's doing half a sermon tomorrow in the East on one faith. That's it, from Ephesians 4. My daughter Millie, so she's just started as a student. She's at the University of Greenwich, doing fine art, first year. I'm looking for people. And then we got the zoo. So we got Darwin the Beagles, and we got Darcy and Reefer, Millie's cats, and we got David Murray, the robot llama, because we're a 21st century family. And I have a question to start with. I'd like to put your hand up. If you were evangelized out on the street, or in work or something else, as opposed to growing up in a church. So if you were, like me, evangelized out the street, okay, that's great. That's about, so everybody else put that, if you grew up in the church and you came to church, can you put your hand up? Okay. So it's about 80, maybe 90% of us were out there, evangelized on the street, and sort of that's why we're here. So we may have asked difficult questions to people. Maybe we were wide open, or maybe not. But I was out on the street in Seattle, just out to study, and somebody came up to me and invited me on to it. And that should give us all hope, shouldn't it? Because if all the hard-hearted people around this room, once hard-hearted, were out there and were invited out on the street and were invited on to church, then there are probably, I would guess from that, scientific proof that there are probably other people out there who are open. And all it is about going out and reaching out to them. But it's about how to do that better. And remembering the ABCs, I do like that. Simon's kind of modified the book to make it into an ABC: ask for clarification, a basis for opinion, counter what they have just said. And that's just really easy to have that, and it's really, really helpful. I really like the book. This is, you saw me referring back to it on the war thing. Christianity killing so many people and that being really evil, and that's such an easy thing to remember. And we were talking in it that out of that list of questions, it's like 15 or 20, and about 10 of them I've had again and again and again and again in the last 30 years. But I felt like that war one, that's an answer I've got now, which is, which I'm going to remember, and I'm going to be better equipped. And that's good, because the purpose of what we're doing isn't just to win the argument. It's not just to win an argument. It is partly to win the argument, but it's not just to do that. The purpose is to win souls for Christ. And I kind of want to kind of always sort of remember that, because it's just... and I want to just be better prepared. And there's something that happened to me a long time ago. So there was a time when I was doing a lot of work overseas and going back and forth. Unfortunately, I'm not doing that anymore. And I had a kind of private rule like, okay, I'm on a plane flight next to somebody for 2 or 3 hours. I'm always going to try and reach out to them. Okay, so I'm on a plane flight. There's a lady next to me, a young lady, and I kind of talking, getting on, about an hour's gone in, I thought, okay, I better drop in something about faith. And I dropped in something about faith. It wasn't even me inviting to church. And she said, are you prejudiced against homosexuals and against gay marriage? Wow. And you thought I was aggressive against Pierre. This was sitting next to me. We had this really nice conversation. I was doing some work in Morocco. She was going out there to do work, volunteering. Had a lovely conversation for an hour. And suddenly she just kind of launched in this big voice onto me. And I just felt obliterated from it. And I kind of went, I've got friends who are homosexual and Jesus, I don't hold it against them. But I really felt unprepared for that. And I always feel like, what we need to do is we always need to be prepared to answer, as that verse in 1 Peter 3 says. And I've had an opinion that the right Christian thing to do is someone asks you a question, or someone comes at you with a question like this, are you against gay marriage? Then the thing to do is to just answer the question. And to me that felt like the right thing to do, and actually a few years ago in the South Side, I think a lot of people did it, we spent a year just looking at the Gospel of Mark. And I was like, this is going to be I was thinking, guys, are you serious? Are we going to spend a year? It's not that big a gospel. And I think I read that gospel. I thought, I'm going to get really bored of this. All the services, all the sermons were on Mark for a year. Most of the teaching was on it for a year. Did you do that as well, Monica? Yeah. And I'm like, guys, this is madness. What are we going to do? Everyone's going to stop coming to church. You know what? I loved it. I reckon I read Mark 7 times, cover to cover that year, and I just fell in love with it. Now, what am I talking about? The bit I found out about it is that what I saw was how brilliant Jesus was at answering questions. Yeah. How he's such an incredible wordsmith. And we looked at it a bit earlier. We looked at that example about Luke 20, about when Jesus asked by the chief priests, what authority do these things? And he didn't answer that. Instead, he said, was the baptism of John from heaven or from earth? Didn't answer the question. And after reading Mark, I started seeing this everywhere through the Gospels, that Jesus doesn't answer the question. Not directly. Jesus gets to the root of it. Because he's not just looking to win the argument, he's trying to win salvation for that person. The goal of it isn't to win the argument, the goal isn't to answer them directly, the goal is to get people to heaven. Yeah. And I saw it around the Bible. So my favourite example of it is in Luke 20. And I just thought we'd go through this because it's a good example to just what we're doing is, I think, is trying to imitate Jesus Christ. So Luke 20, when a Samaritan woman came to draw water, Jesus said to her, will you give me a drink? His disciples had gone into the town to buy food. The Samaritan woman said to him, you are a Jew, and I'm a Samaritan woman. How can you ask me for a drink? I reckon she was pretty aggressive on this. For Jews do not associate with Samaritans. So the question is, how can you ask me for a drink? What has Jesus answered in blue? Jesus answered, if you knew the gift of God and who it is that asks you for a drink, you would have asked him and he would have given you living water. Wow. So, does Jesus answer the question? No, he doesn't. Jesus kind of deflects it and starts talking about living water, this enigmatic bit in it. The woman goes, sir, the woman says, you have nothing to draw with, and the well is deep. Where can you get this living water? Are you greater than our father Jacob who gave us the well? So that's the question. Are you greater than our father Jacob? And drank from it himself, as he did also his sons and his livestock. Jesus answered, everyone who drinks... So, did Jesus answer the question, are you greater than our father Jacob? Everyone who drinks this water will be thirsty again, but whoever drinks of the water I give them will never thirst. Indeed, the water I give them will become in them a spring of water welling up to eternal life. Just doesn't answer it. Is Jesus being deceitful in this? Why is Jesus an answer? The woman said to him, sir, give me this water so that I won't get thirsty and have to keep coming here to draw water. That's interesting. She's sort of gone off the attack here. Jesus' words of kind of getting through a bit. And then Jesus, go call your husband and come back. So Jesus is kind of changing the subject again. And she for the first time, answers a bit. Jesus is now leading the conversation. I have no husband, she replied. Jesus said to her, you're right when you say you have no husband. The fact is you've had 5 husbands, And the man you now have is not your husband. What you've said is quite true. Wouldn't it be great to have the gift of prophecy? You know, it'd be so much easier if you're going to evangelize and you can do these kind of things and you have all knowledge. We don't have that. So how does the woman respond? Sir, the woman said, I can see that you are a prophet. Our ancestors worshipped on this mountain, but you Jews claim that this place where we must worship is in Jerusalem. She's trying to take the attack back again. She's making a statement. She's changing the subject, just like we were talking about. She's throwing these things at Jesus. You know, why are you talking to me? You know, now she's talking about this. And then Jesus comes. Again, does Jesus answer the question? The place you must worship is in Jerusalem. Woman, Jesus replied, believe me, a time is coming when you will worship the Father, neither on this mountain nor in Jerusalem. You Samaritans worship what you do not know. We worship what we do know, for salvation is from the Jews. Yet a time is coming and has now come when the true worshippers will worship the Father in the Spirit and truth. For they are the kind of worshippers the Father seeks. God is Spirit, and his worshippers must worship in the Spirit and in truth. So Jesus kind of semi-answers it, but then moves on. And then she goes, but Jesus is focused on winning her for salvation, not on winning the argument. The woman says, I know that Messiah called Christ is coming. When he comes, he will explain everything to us. And Jesus declared, I, the one who speaks to you, I am he. So Jesus has got it round to the good news of Jesus Christ, that he is our salvation. He's not got deflected across from the conversation. Just then his disciples returned and were surprised to find him talking to the woman, but no one asked, what do you want, or why are you talking with her? Then leaving her water jar, the woman went back to town and said to the people, come, see a man who told me everything I ever did. Could this be the Messiah? He came out of town and made the way to him. So that's the purpose. You know, we're all in the room, 90% of us are here because someone's reached out to us. Probably we had different questions. I know I did when I was reached out to. I've done all kinds of weird stuff. But if it had just answered the questions I had, we'd still be out on the street in Seattle answering those questions. But actually, they took it round to the good news about Jesus and salvation. The purpose of what we're doing is not just to win an argument, but to win souls for Christ. What I'm going to do is I'm going to flick through. The book is great, and I would really recommend reading it. I'm going to go through some bits from some chapters, the bits that were the most hurtful. So from chapter 9, it's called Turnabout, and it's again, ask for clarification, basis for opinion, counter what they've just said. So one of the bits I found really helpful from chapter 9 is before we go further, so when you're asked a question, is to come back with one of these aids, ask for clarification. Before we go further, let me ask something. My sense is that you want to explain the point by using questions. That confuses me a bit because I'm not sure how to respond. I think I'd rather you simply state your view directly. Then let me chew on it for a moment and see what I think. Would that be all right for you? I love the way that he's written this because sometimes, you know, when you're out there, you're asked a question and you start answering it and then you're interrupted, you know, and they ask another question on a different bit, just like happened to Jesus. You know, and you ask the question, and you're not getting anywhere. So what it says here is, before we go any further, can we ask them, can you just explain? Ask them to clarify, you know, go back to them for basis for opinion. What is the basis for your opinion? And you get them to say that clearly, you know, what is that? You know, generally they'll be prejudiced against the point. So let's look at, and the bit at the bottom is really good. Would that be all right with you? Yeah. You finish with that bit and then you pause and you hopefully get them to say, yeah, that's okay. Yeah, please go ahead. And then they state really what they believe, because it might be tangled, what they really believe. And then you give them time to respond to it. So let's look at an example of that. People say, you're saying that people who don't believe just like you are going to hell. That's one of those questions that we might get, one of these ones. You're saying that people who don't believe just like you are going to hell. It's an accusation about Christians being, you know, condemning everybody else. And a way to respond is just say no. That's not the point I'm making. You know, I'm making a completely different point. You're putting words into my mouth, and you can stop it by a fairly direct point back. One of the bits that came around and one of the questions on the sheet, which I really liked on that, was this one, which is that all religions are basically the same after all. And a way of responding back is just to say, go back for clarifications. Religions are basically the same, really, in what way? And a response back, you know, so go back to a question, what do they mean all religions are the same? You know, it's a very weird question actually when you think about it. In what way do you mean that religions are all the same? And so one response back which he quotes about, which is good, is, well, all religions teach you shouldn't kill people, you shouldn't murder. So you could go down that particular rabbit hole, or you could be like Jesus and deflect the question to something a bit more productive. So this is one. Okay. And you could say like this, well, actually, of all the religions, Christianity and Judaism are probably the two that are the closest. You know, we believe that the Old Testament, their book, it is the Word of God. You know, there aren't any other religions that share a word of God. You know, Islam doesn't believe that the Old Testament, they think they're okay as books, but they don't believe that it is the word of God. You know, and that's the next clearest. And then you look at Hinduism, Buddhism, there's very little, you know, but Judaism and Christianity, they're pretty similar in lots of ways. But consider this, either Jesus is the Messiah or he isn't, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
If he isn't the Messiah, then we're all wrong. You know, Christians, we're all wrong.
Yeah.
And the Jews are right. If he is the Messiah, then the Jews are right, and the Jews are wrong, and the Christians are right. You know, it's a kind of binary code, 1 or 0. You know, it's either Christians are right or the Jews are right.
Yeah.
It can't be both. On one way or another, under no circumstances can both religions be basically the same. Can they? And then just wait patiently for an answer and get them to clarify something. And hopefully you get them to actually answer that question. And it's like, no, all Judaism and Christianity are fundamentally different based on whether Jesus is the Messiah or not. You know, and then you've won that argument. Or you might get deflected onto, but the Bible has been changed and translated so many times over the centuries you can't trust it. And that is a thing that happens on this, isn't it? When you might, and I think you want to, when you've made a victory, because we are correct, we are standing on truth. It's not like we're talking on fake and stuff. We have truth. You know, we love the truth. Christianity is all about the truth. It's not like we're, you know, and everything backs us up, you know. But anyway, but the Bible has been, so say someone subverts onto another question, you know, but the Bible has been changed and translated so many times in the centuries you can't trust it. This is this is probably my favourite, and I would say I think all of us will probably have a favourite subject. So my wife's a scientist. She loves talking about. She teaches chemistry and mainly biology. She loves talking about science and how science proves the Bible, and science proves creation. She looks at it from that point of view. It's her favourite subject. It's not I know a bit, I know some, but it's definitely not mine. I wouldn't go for that. I'm prepared to answer, shall we say, in that. But I would say all of us should have something that we're more expert in, but be prepared to answer in the other areas. So, you know, my one, I quite like knowing the Bible, and I quite like knowing archaeology and history and those kind of things. It's a kind of pet subject for me. So another one, you could be keen on war, but you know, or you could be great at you know, marriage. You know, I went out for dinner with school reunion, and around the table there were 8 of us there from the class of '86.
Wow!
And which was pretty good. Of the 8, you know, I've been married 27 years. That's good. There are 2 other guys who married people a fair bit younger, and they're still married, so that's good. And the other 5 are all on their 2nd or 3rd wives or girlfriend or whatever. And that's just society, you know? So we may be married, and we may have an expertise in that. We may have children, we might be experts in that. But there's areas that we all have experts in, and then areas that not. So this is one which I like. So the Bible has been changed and translated so many times over the centuries, you can't trust it. Everyone heard that one on the street or some variation?
Yeah.
Okay, so my personal favourite on response to this, is, have you heard of the book of Isaiah? Okay? So, it's got in it some great prophecies about Jesus Christ. So Isaiah 7:14, therefore the Lord himself will give you a sign, behold, a virgin will shall conceive and bear a son. That seems to be talking about Jesus. Isaiah 53, the whole of that part, which we read in communion so many times. He was wounded for our transgressions, he was bruised for our iniquities, with his stripes we're healed. There's a trouble with Isaiah. It's a really big problem with Isaiah, which is the age of it. So the oldest version of Isaiah that we had was the Aleppo Codex, which was written in 920 AD. That's the oldest version of Isaiah. It's transcribed. We know who translated it, Solomon in the Galilean city of Tiberias, oldest version of Isaiah. So what happened was there was a group called the Higher Critics. They were kind of mainly based in Germany, and others which kind of sort of 19th century and a bit before. But they all said, okay, you know what happened? This oldest version of Isaiah, so the Christians rewrote it. After Jesus, they kind of rewrote the book of Isaiah and they put it in these bits, 7 and 53 to talk about Jesus. And, that's what happened. So that was the accusation. And all the higher critics, the great scholars, these things, all agreed that Isaiah had been rewritten by the Christians. Until 1948. And have you heard of the Dead Sea Scrolls? So, discovery in 1948 in Israel of the Old Testament scrolls. And what did they find? What was the first one they found? Was the great scroll of Isaiah. Wow. Threw a pebble into a cave, a shepherd boy, and it landed, a tinkle of pottery, and there was the great scroll of Isaiah. And you got it. So you've got the great scroll of Isaiah dated to 125 BC. Amazing. So you have 125 BC, and you got 920 AD. Yeah. That's a lot of time. Yep. 1,045 years. Compare those two. There are no differences in meaning between a scroll written in 920 AD and one 125 BC. So that means that scholars, scribes, can translate faithfully a book for 1,045 years, with no changes in meaning. Now, there are some little changes in punctuation, but there's no, if you go and look at that, you can get this online, and you can say on the street, so this is my favourite answer to that. It's like, you say the Bible's been changed, and many, many, many times. It's not. It's just not. Yeah. The Bible has been faithfully translated. If we know it's been translated accurately for 1,045 years between these two kind of dates, then we can be pretty sure that the Bible is accurate. Yep. So that's my favourite one. There's a little bit of data and facts in that, but you just need to know Codex of Aleppo 920 AD and Dead Sea Scrolls 150 BC and 125 BC. Chapter 10, let's look at some of that. Views that serve to destruct, and I'm going to whistle through this. So I did think I'd look at this. This is not an area of my expertise, about the Hindu concept. I did note, getting the bus here, that there were a lot of Hindus in this part of, a lot of Indians in this part of London. I have read some of the Upanishads a long time ago. I don't know them very well. But there's this concept of, if I'm an illusion, how could I know it? So key Hindu principle is about the world is a world of illusion. How could I know? How could I possess true knowledge that I do not exist? Do people in a dream know that they are imaginary? Does Charlie Brown know that he's a cartoon character? That's a good one to remember, isn't it? Because Charlie, there's a central doctrine of Hinduism which actually, when you think about it, sort of self-destructs. It's the world is illusion. How could you know? It's impossible to do. There's another one which is in the book. Do you read it? Chapter 12. If God, this is a conversation in India. If God is, as from a Hindu to a Christian, if God is, as you say, how can you allow such suffering, especially for the children? So this is a Hindu accusing a Christian, your God, if it's God is as it says, how can you allow suffering to children? And the truth, and a good answer here, God hasn't done this to India. The problems in Madras, where this was, are linked to Indian society and what Hinduism teaches. One day, so that's a pretty strong thing. There's some truth in it. I'm not sure I would respond quite as toughly on this one, but this was the response. One day all evil will be destroyed and Jesus will wipe away every tear. I like the last sentence actually better than the ones before it, because it's getting in the Bible, it's getting in biblical truth into there to change somebody, to try and win someone over. A response to that. How could that be? Evil and good exist as dual poles. If you have no evil, it's impossible to have good. Each must balance the other one. So this is a key teaching of Hinduism. Let me repeat this reasoning back to you. This is a good thing to do, to learn how to do. And you tell me what you think. You asked, why are innocent children starving in the streets of Madras? Good and evil exist as dual poles. Children starve in Madras so kids in the other parts of the world may be happy and well. The one balances the other out. What do you think? It's quite a strong argument, but I think if we're trying to work out how to reach out to Hindu people, to a little bit of an understanding of what the Hindu religion says, and actually that it is, it's quite a strong word to say, self-destructs, but there are illogicalities within Hindu religion, and that might be a good way to talk, to speak back, especially if you're under attack in a conversation, or if you're in a conversation with a Hindu, is to ask them about this. Sibling rivalries, chapter 12. And this is one of my favourite examples in it. There's the accusation that God cannot exist because evil does. How could God exist? How could God allow evil to exist in the world? Your God can't exist because the world is full. He wouldn't allow that to happen. And actually, I think the opposite is the case. Instead of evil being a good argument against God, I believe, and I genuinely believe this, is it's one of the best evidences for God. Yeah. I remember as a young Christian, I was out there, maybe I've been a Christian about a month, and I come from quite a mixed up background, quite a lot of Christianity, but I'd also gone and stayed in a Buddhist temple in Japan for a bit of time, and I was kind of confused. And at the end of the day, I was like, do I believe the Bible? I'm not sure. Do I believe it's Christianity? I'm not sure. Do I believe in any God? I'm not sure. And what I came down to, I remember sitting in a bar on my own late at night as a young Christian having a major wobble, like they do. And I came to the thought, you know what, I do believe in evil. I believe evil exists. I know I've done evil, and I see out there evil. Evil exists. And thinking away, I went, if evil exists, and I know it does, then good and God also exists. Evil can't exist without good and God. It's illogical to think that evil can exist without God. And then I went from there to, okay, well, I know if God exists, he will make himself known to everybody, so it won't be an intangible, unknowable God. So it's one of the gods. It's Zoroastrianism, Buddhism, Hinduism, Islam, Judaism, or Christianity. Okay, I've looked at those. It's Christianity, So I think that if you get into that conversation, if you can turn that around. So let's look at a way of doing that. God cannot exist because of evil. God would not allow bad things to happen. That's the question. And it's kind of underneath that, probably that person is an atheist. And have that in the back of your mind. A good response. What do you mean by evil? Draw it out of them. Murder, torture, oppression, war. You might get a lot of that in Ukraine at the moment. And don't you're not answering the question. You're following Jesus' example. Why call those things evil in the first place? Because you're trying to get to an atheist, underneath it. The idea of good and evil morality is based on the basis, maybe you can write something better than that, of God's existence. It's because you've realised by that question that you're probably speaking to an atheist. God seems to be necessary in order for any conversation about evil to be coherent. And finishing off, taking the roof off, which is a great thing about that, about actually kind of working your way through to this thing, working your way through to helping this person find Jesus Christ. Let's look at Jesus. The Pharisees said, "This man casts out demons only by Beelzebub, the ruler of the demons." And knowing their thoughts, the Pharisees are making this accusation about Jesus Christ. And how does Jesus respond? "Any kingdom divided against itself will not stand. If Satan casts out Satan, he is divided against himself. How then will his kingdom stand? But if I cast out demons by the Spirit of God, then the kingdom of God has come upon you." So what's Jesus' response back? So he's been accused in a very aggressive way about that he is the son of Satan, because that's how he's got the power to drive out demons. And he's gone back, because that's a faulty statement. It's completely illogical. Any kingdom against itself will not stand. If Satan counts at standard, he's divided. But instead, he then flips it back onto the other way. I cast out demons. I can't be from Satan. He makes that argument. I must therefore be from God. If you oppose me, you are then opposing God, and you are supporting Satan. I mean, Jesus is just this unbelievable good at what we're talking about. He doesn't get sucked into these stupid conversations that you're being accused with, but he turns them on their head and he gets out the truth. The claim was Jesus cast out demons by the power of Satan. Taking the roof off, if Satan is the source of Jesus' power, then Satan is casting out Satan just wanting to come. That's absurd. A lot of the accusations we'll get will be absurd. Instead, Jesus' power doesn't come from Satan, but from God. And if you Pharisees are opposing Satan, then you're opposing Jesus. Then you're not opposing God. You're opposing God and not Satan. So, concluding, I got asked this question on the airplane. Are you prejudiced against homosexuals and against gay marriage? What will be a better answer to have done, which if I could transport myself back. It wasn't a terrible answer, but I gave, but we didn't end up with, was, are you prejudiced against homosexuals and against gay marriage? Let me understand your question. Are you saying it is wrong to condemn a group of people based on the fact that they think differently from you?
That's a good one.
Okay. Yes, you Christians condemn homosexuals. Why are you condemning Christians then? And they may not get the question.
Yeah.
And I do think the homosexual thing is a really hard question to answer at the moment. This is my way of doing it. I would say, why to people who are accusing Christians of condemning it, why are you condemning Christians? I would go down that tack of it. They might go, what? What are you talking about? I didn't say that. So why are you condemning a group of people, Christians, because they think differently from you? And they might, it's a good, smart, not a bad answer. I'm responding to the fact that a lot of Christians condemn people. I understand, and it sounds like you're condemning all Christians because some may condemn homosexuality. And it might go on to, yes, I am, you're supposed to love everybody. Wait a minute, you're not listening to yourself. You just said it's wrong to condemn people, and now you're condemning me. So I'm asking, why are you doing the very same thing that you say is wrong when I do it? I actually think there's quite a lot of similarities between Christianity and homosexuals in some ways. Is that both of them are groups that are condemned on a broad term. And actually, as you put very well, in school, Christians aren't the main people condemning homosexuals. It's not actually what we do. You don't go around condemning it. I don't go around. I'm looking for people who want to follow Jesus. That is different. But I'm looking for people. If people don't want to follow Jesus, yes, exactly. It's sort of up to them. If they. But I'm looking for people. If somebody wants to follow Jesus and they're homosexual, that's a more difficult and a bigger conversation. But that's what I'm looking for. I'm not going around the world condemning people. That's what Jesus said. I didn't come to be there.
That's right.
I came to save. So I think there's a bit on that. So finishing ABCs, ask for clarification, basis for opinion, C, counter what they've just said. And those are some practicals. Those are some bits in the book which I really helped me. It's not a big book. You can read it. It's very readable. Some of it is just brilliant and really helped me out. The bits I get is always be prepared to answer. I mean, the Bible says that. We always need to be prepared. And, there's some things we're strong on and some things are weak. And I think from this, like that thing we talked about war, I feel like I'm so much strong for that. And the purpose of what we're doing is not to just win an argument, but to win souls for Christ. Amen.
Amen.
Excellent, James. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. Appreciate the examples. Appreciate how practical it was. It is helpful to get the book if it really would. If you get the chance to look at the book. What's time we got, Will? It's 4 now. We're up now. So I'm just gonna close this out for a moment. Does anyone feel like they've taken a lot in?
Yeah.
I feel like I've taken a lot in, and I've done this course before, right? So here's what I want you to think about, right? ABCs. I'm going to give these out a sheet. I can give these out, guys. All right, just pass them around. All can pass them around. You're not going to remember how to deal with every objection. You're not going to know how to remember to deal with many objections. You probably don't even remember how to deal with the few objections we've covered today. That's fine. That wasn't the goal. The goal is I've got a strategy to engage in conversation with people who don't agree with me. A, I can ask them what they mean. B, what's the basis for their opinion? And C, if I can go there, I can offer something different, right? As James said, there's a few options on our sheet there where we may have a few bits of expertise. Is there one or two objections you're happy to deal with compared to others? You're not going to be able to deal with all of them. What I've put on my sheet there is, I know it's condensed. I have done a video, so it's the only plug I've given this weekend, I think. Not that I've got on YouTube. I've done a video on probably 90% of all these objections. And sometimes of an acronym, so you can get them expanded on there. If anyone wants any more details, just please ask me. You can see there, I've covered, very summarised, what I might offer when they give an objection, what do they mean, and then have you considered. Like I say, please don't feel overwhelmed because you can't deal with all the objections. It's just get in conversations, be happy to find out what they mean, figure out how they got there, and as time moves on, because you want to bring people to Jesus, you'll find out ways of countering the opposition, the objection you've heard. I love what James was saying, and the book talks about it. The idea is, we do want to get on the front foot in conversations. Why? We've got a plan to save people. The people we're talking to probably don't. They just have a view about something, whereas we want to get people to Jesus. Which is why we try to go on the front foot on conversations. So I don't think we have any real time for questions. I think we just need to get out of here, guys. Thank you so much. Please drop me a message on YouTube or something like that, or through email if you need to. Thanks so much for listening, guys.
Amen. Good job.